Hello and welcome to Wolfman Gaming. This is my The Last of Us Part 2 Grounded Difficulty Walkthrough, and this is episode 9, in which we will be going through the entirety of Abby's second day in Seattle. And we are back down in this, I think it's like an harbor area, with all these freight containers. In day 1, we went through here going the other way, running past some infected, and now that we're heading back, this place is packed with seraphites instead. But we are gonna get through this with minimum amount of effort. The first guy we are gonna take out here is this dude in the middle of the screen. Just wait for him to start heading back and go up and grab him, and make sure you kill him behind this container so no one runs the chance or risk, or whatever you want to call it, depending on how you look at it, of finding his corpse. And as soon as he is down, just move over to these steel beams, because we have this brute fella walking back and forth. And if you don't wait behind these steel beams, you see he moves over to that tall grass. On my first attempt at this, I decided to just tuck my balls, go into the grass, and head for the exit. But I got spotted, and waiting here is just a few seconds delay, so it's well worth the wait and being sure that you're completely safe going through the very last part of this little encounter. And now it's time to take our first shot with the crossbow. And as I mentioned earlier, I really like this weapon in comparison to the bow and arrow. And one of the perks with it is that it says down there, the text prompt on the left side of the screen, if you can't read Swedish, it says that crossbow bolts are more durable and can more often be retrieved off dead bodies. Which is a really good thing, but I would say that there is one exception to that rule, and that is clickers. I have never been able to retrieve a bolt off a clicker. And I think it might be that their skulls are thicker due to the cordyceps fungus. But either way, this encounter right here, you saw me throw down a brick. What you want to do after you have thrown that brick is go back down the stairs from where you came and pick up another one. And you want to do that for two reasons. One, a brick can always come in handy. And it will also give the infected in here time to reset. You saw this runner moving back into the corner, because when you throw down the brick, they will be in an aggroed state, pacing back and forth, trying to find the source of the sound when you throw it through the glass window or glass pane. But if you wait around for a few seconds, they will calm down, go back to their default positions, and it will be much easier to get through this. And this area is quite cramped, and as far as I know, after you have killed that runner, there are still 2 more runners, a clicker and a shambler somewhere over to my left. But just hug the right wall, make sure to crawl, since both shamblers and clickers have perfect hearing, more or less. And when you get out here, just go over to the platform on the other side of that car, and that will teleport Lev out of that encounter. Also out here, there is a steel pipe on one of those little islands platforms over on my left. And before you get to this encounter, you want to grab that steel pipe and reinforce it with a scissor and some tape if you have that. Because in here there are 4 seraphites which will come rushing, and as I said, towards the end of this chapter there is a boss fight, and we want to conserve our ammo. And when you reinforce your melee weapon with a shiv, as we did back in day 1, it will do instant kill hits. And these 4 enemies are quite kind usually, because they have a tendency to run at you one at a time, so you have time to, if you need to, heal up in between them. And the only one that can actually pose a real threat is this guy, because he has, I think it's a shotgun, a pump action. I got a little bit lucky because he only took a bit off Abby's non-existent love handles. Just trim a little bit of the sides. But you saw, that fight is fairly easy. Just hide behind these discs and let them come to you. And in this encounter, I like to equip my own shotgun just for the exit. Because I tried a bunch of different ways going through this. And I realized the absolute easiest way is to sneak up here, heading up for the top tier of platforms. And make sure that no one spots you in the process. If that woman catches a glimpse of you, it's not a big problem because she will jump down, trying to find you, and since we're heading up, she will be even further away. But these two, you want to keep an eye on the woman on the right. Keep these pillars in between you and her so you don't end up in her line of sight until we want to do that. Because when you jump over here, most of the times the guard behind you will spot you. So we just give her a quick round of buckshot. Make sure to collect that bullet as we're running out. And this door, unlike the red door back in Ellie's, was it second day? Is super quick to open. So as soon as you shoot her, just make a quick exit. And this is an apartment jam-packed with stalkers. I feel that I'm a bit behind on my commentary. You will go in here to find a gas mask for Liv. And when you find the gas mask, those stalkers will not come in until you pick up the gas mask. So make sure to loot through the entire apartment first. And I would say go the path back to the door once or twice. Make sure you memorize it before you pick it up, because you'll want to do a speedy exit when you have it. And here we're introduced to a new enemy mechanic, which I call the wall stalkers. You see right in front of me? These stalkers have probably been dormant and passive for so long that the cordyceps has started growing out of them and merging into the wall. And they are there just to be traps. The good thing is that first one is mandatory to trigger. I don't think you can get past him without triggering him or her. But fortunately, that's the only stalker or the only wall stalker you actually have to engage. Because this is a giant stealth area.
How many more floors down?
We are heading down through this gigantic building. And I really like this area. By the way, quick note here. When you get to this point, you want to start crawling up to the very edge. Then jump across, and while you're climbing up, mash the circle button. So you immediately crouch. And then start crawling before you move a single inch. Because you saw over to the left that there is a clicker standing there passively. If you go to the right, there is a path where you can just walk across. But then you will go straight into the waiting arms of a wall stalker. And that clicker, on my first playthrough, I took that route. And I got attacked by the stalker, of course. And the clicker came in from my left, so I think he can even jump across that gap. And since we are playing this on grounded, you don't want to engage any of those. So just head down the middle path. But be careful, do not make any noise. And also in this room, you see in that corner, that's also a wall stalker. So just head back out. I think first I tried going into the back room, but there was nothing I found worth looting. Just a waste of wearing down your melee weapon to engage that one, and you'll run the risk of triggering the clicker. So just head back out and go down. And now we have picked up a new weapon, the flamethrower. and I will be using that in the boss fight. Other than that, I have not used it at all in this walkthrough. I was not impressed with the flamethrower in the first game. I thought it was kind of a throwaway weapon. It always feels satisfying to use them, but not on the highest difficulty, because the flamethrower is built a little bit around damage over time. And when it comes to infected, flames are effective. You saw back also Ellie in day 2 when we went in to get the holster where I threw in a Molotov. It can work wonders when you need to clear out hordes of enemies, but the effect isn't direct, so to speak. I think I barely used it. I think I tried it out on my first playthrough, and from what I can remember, I wasn't super impressed with the effect. But we are gonna use it at the boss because it's very effective in that fight. It will make it a lot easier than it otherwise could be, and it allows us to conserve our very precious ammo. Because towards the end of Abby's journey, we are gonna use up quite a bit of ammo. But either way, while we are in this giant stealth area, in my last video, I talked a little bit about criticism towards this game, that I got pissed that I was taken out of my very upgraded Ellie and put in the shoes of basic level Abby. And this game contracted a lot of criticism, and it has continued to do so. And a lot because of the story. And some of the criticism I can agree with to a certain degree, because the story in this game, I think, is not as good as it was in the first game. I think since this game is about revenge and hate, I think from a narrative standpoint, to take you out of the character that you know and have probably come to be quite emotionally attached to, and put in the shoes of the person who has hurt her. I think if you want to incite hate or make people feel the hurt that Ellie does, it is a really smart move. Sadly, it backfired, and I can understand that people were disappointed, but to the point where they start sending threats to the actors and review bombing and stuff like that, because even if the story has its flaws. I have come to, during my second playthrough recording this, I've actually come to like Abby's part of the game more than Ellie's. A bit because I think a lot of Abby's encounters are super fun, especially one in day 3. But also, her story holds together and makes a lot more sense than Ellie's does. And I don't want to get into details, because if you're watching this just because you enjoy my videos, I don't want to spoil anything. But I feel that mistakes were made at times. But the core mechanics of this game, no matter what you think of the story, even though the story is a big thing, it's a big part of this game, or the series overall. But the mechanics of this game are so spot on. It felt so good playing this the first time, and because the first game I played through that I think like 7 times or something. I think I did my grounded walkthrough on my 7th playthrough. It was my 3rd time going through it on grounded mode, and I knew every spawn, every enemy pattern, everything. But going back to this bleak, gloomy, depressing world, and hearing the sound of a clicker and feeling your sphincter tightening once again, that was an awesome feeling, because these encounters, and there are a shitload of them in this game, if you go through the encounters list, because out in the starting menu, or whatever you call it, you can choose encounters, you can choose chapters or acts or whatever part you want to play. And before I start recording this, I think I did a count of the encounters. Either way. And there are 50 of them, if I recall correctly. 50. And that is a lot of fights. And that's what I really enjoy. Even though, yes, the story is flawed. And I know I saw a video where Neil Druckmann explained why the thing that triggers this adventure to take place, why that makes sense. I thought, to some extent, I think that is a sign that you have failed as a storyteller. Because if you have to explain why something makes sense, then you haven't done a good enough job of telling it in your game. But either way, I enjoy this game. The story is not as good as in the first one, but I don't think it deserves all the flack it has gotten. And it is super fun, and the game mechanics are as tight as you would expect and hope. And the reason I'm showing you this little part is in that room where I went in and picked up the alcohol, on the left wall there is one of those wall stalkers, so I wanted to include that so no one makes the mistake of running in there and not being prepared for it. But this little encounter here, when you get in here, this is one of those points where I would recommend that you reset checkpoint. Because you saw when the first clicker burst through the door. If you don't, the first time you get in here, I think he enters the corridor at the same time as you do. And if you reset checkpoint, you have time to move up to that bed and hide behind it just before he bursts through the door. And when you go out through this door that I'm heading to right now, this is the last encounter before the boss, so make sure to equip the flamethrower and the assault rifle, and make sure that everything is fully loaded. And I would also recommend that you create as many grenades as you can, at least 4. And that is the boss, people. The first time I got to this part, I almost shat myself, because that boss, now that's what I call boss design. His official name is the Rat King. And for anyone who doesn't know what the origin is of the term Rat King, is that it's when you take a bunch of rats and tie their tails together to form a knot of living rats. And that is a Rat King. And this creature is an amalgamism, I think is the correct term, of some of the first people that were infected by the cordyceps, because this hospital is the first hospital they were sent to. So he's been lurking around here for 20 plus years, 24 years, and merged into this giant... He looks almost like something out of the Bloodborne universe. Completely fucked up. But after that chase sequence, we go into the boss fight. And the first time I played this, I struggled in the beginning. But since then I've learned that this boss fight is actually quite easy. I'm gonna warm him up by throwing a grenade. You want to keep at least 2 grenades. Because this fight has 2 phases, and thankfully there is a checkpoint in between them. Because here in phase 1, all you want to do is kite him back and forth in this long corridor. When you have damaged him enough, this fight will move on into phase 2. Then one of the infecteds that is attached to him will break free and get involved in the fight. And I would say do not attack that infected, because we are gonna fight him after this fight. But he's just there to make this more stressful. Because he will chase you, sometimes you will have to dodge his swings. But that's why you want to save the grenades, because when we go into phase 2 you want to end this as quickly as possible. Because on my first try I died due to that, I think it's called a lurker. Because I was focused on the Rat King and he managed to hit me. Because it was hard juggling both of them. But in this area also there are ammo pickups and there are explosives that you can pick up, and I think I've read somewhere that they do respawn after a certain time. If you pick this place clean, they will respawn after a while, so you don't run out of ammo. And this is the cutscene which triggers phase 2. And when this starts, I immediately throw 2 grenades, and then it's time to use our flamethrower. And when you use the flamethrower, you want to do rather short bursts. Don't just stand there cooking his ass. Instead, do short bursts and try to get him to catch flame. Because when he's burning, it does damage over time. So right now, the flames are slowly chipping away at his health. And now I resorted to use my hunter pistol because I want to use the flamethrower in the lurker fight. And that is the end of the Rat King. And he is really easy once you have learned the layout of that area, because you saw he doesn't have any distance attacks. All he can do is go up and grab you, and if he grabs you, it is an instant kill state. This is actually the trickier part, because this lurker is super quick. He loves to run around and hide like a stalker, and you saw me throw 2 grenades at him. The only time you wanna throw grenades at this asshole is if he's charging towards you. Because there is a delay on those. They don't explode on impact like the Molotovs. But when you throw them at him, if he's charging at you, you saw he takes a step back. And that is just enough time for the grenade to explode right next to his feet, and he will suffer the maximum amount of damage from the blast. And also, the key to winning this fight is make friends with the corners. Always keep your back against the wall and let him come to you. You do not want to go chasing after him. Because you see, I'm just moving away, trying to find a corner, wedge myself into it and wait. Because he takes an insane amount of damage before he goes down. And now I'm actually gonna kill him. I healed up just before the end of the fight. But this fight is easy if you let him lead. Let him come to you at all times. Don't go chasing after him. You will just suffer unnecessary damage. And after a while he goes down. As I said, the flamethrower, super effective. And use the grenades. And I think actually that he can almost take more punishment than the Rat King can. But that is the end of this video, and I want to thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in my next video. So until next time, this is the Wolfman signing off.